Hello and welcome back to this tutorial. In our previous tutorial, we learned how to use the concepts of inheritance in our object-oriented programming. Now, in this video, we are going to be learning how to use abstraction. So, what is abstraction? Well, abstraction is a concept in Python object-oriented programming that allows you to abstract your methods. Okay, so I believe that is some sort of repetition, but in a very simple term, this abstraction, this concept of abstraction, allows you to hide the implementation of the method that you use in your superclasses. Okay, so now this is a superclass, and we have the parrot and the dog classes as our subclasses. So now, if for any reason you want to hide implementation, or you do not want the users of your program to know exactly the way these methods were implemented, you can use the concept of abstraction. So for the sake of this video, we are going to import a module, and the name of that module is called the ABC module. So I'm going to write the import statement, and I'm going to say from ABC, I want to import ABC. So ABC, and I'll also import the abstract method. Okay, so and down here I'm going to create a class, and this class I'll call it data. So it's going to be a data class. And when you are using abstraction, you are going to inherit from that ABC method that we created. So here I'm inheriting from the ABC method, from the ABC class, sorry. So, and what will happen is that all the methods that we are going to define here, the first one is going to be the print data method. So I can call it print data, and I want it to pass. I don't want it to do anything. And the next method is going to be check data. So I want to check the type of that data. So I will say check data. And again, I'm going to pass. So now these two methods we have already created in this super class, and I'm going to create our subclasses. So I'm going to create one for integer class and one for string class. So now I'm going to call this first integer class, and I'm going to pass in the data class. So here again, I'm going to define this print data method. So, and as you can see, VS Code is already suggesting the print data method for us. So, and I'm going to say that, okay, here we are going to return the type of the data. So here we are passing in data. Okay. So, and we are saying that please, whatever data that is passed, please return the type. So that's the only thing we are doing with this method. Okay. So the print data method, so as you can see, VS Code has already completed it for us. And here I'm going to pass in data. So that is anything that we pass in, right? So now what is going to be the implementation of this? So the only thing I want is that I want this Python, this function to return the data that was passed in. So I am going to probably in a print statement say that the data that was passed in, the data is data. So we pass in this data, and I'll also go ahead to implement the check data method. So I'll define the check data method. Okay, so I think I spelled this wrongly. So I'll call it check data, and here I'll call it check data. Okay, so I'll correct all of this. So now, and what do I want to happen here? So I will just return the type of whatever data. So I'm passing in data here as well. So, and I'm going to say that I want to return the type of data that was passed in. So I'll just say return the type of this data. Okay, so outside of this function, I can create a standalone method, and I can call it data info, and I'm going to pass in a variable, right? So, and I'm going to say that data is this database. Okay, so and I'll close this. Is this data class? Okay, or I can just use the colon and say that this is data class. So, and what I want to do is I'm going to call the data method. So I'm going to call this data variable, and I'm going to call the two methods here. Okay, and I can say data also dot print data. So now I can decide to create instances of this data and then call this method on the instances. So immediately it's going to just check the data and print the data for us. So I can just create an instance. Int data is equal to, is an instance of the int class, and I will pass in an integer. So 20 is an integer, and I will create another one for the string class. So where, oh, okay, so we already have one class. We already only have one class. So you can decide to create your own class. So, or we can just do that. So we can duplicate this class and we're going to call this one string class. Okay. And the print data method here, I can modify this and say, and is a string. Okay. So that we know the difference. And this will just do for this. Okay. So I'm going to create an instance of the int data and an instance of the string data. So I can say that string data is an instance of, so I'll change this to capital letter, okay, because of our naming convention. I'm creating an instance of the string class and I'm passing in a string. So I'm just going to type in the text Python, and so I'll pass this function on these two instances. So I can say data info and then passing these classes as my argument. So I'm passing in the int data, and for the second one I'll pass in the string data. So if I run this, okay, so we have this non-data return for us, and that is because we did not print this statement here. So let's print them here. So now I believe this will go better. And so we see the class of the data. So it's a class of the subclasses, and then we have the data. Okay, so now we have, instead of this data, we can decide to say self.data so that we have the actual data. Okay, so we pass in self here and we have self.data. So we are going to do the same for the second class. So we pass in self here and then we have self.data. So we modify all of this. So, and we are going to run this again. So we have a better result, so that this one is an integer and the data is 20, and the other one is of class string and the data is Python and it's a string. So I believe you've been able to understand how you can implement this abstraction successfully in your object-oriented programming. So thank you so much for watching this video and see you in the next one.